Welcome everybody tonight to our very first night of Advent. We are incredibly excited. One, that you're all here with us, and two, for the Advent series we've put together. We believe it's something a little bit different than you might get in your own church. And, that's kind of who Sanctuary is. We are not a church. We're actually an oasis community, which is a way we are connected to our home denomination of metropolitan community churches, but we're not a church. We are outside that kind of umbrella, and we are a place of community, of programming, and of so much more, which I'll share with you since a few of you are new with us tonight. First off, though, I'd like to share my screen and just show you kind of how we do what we do here. So we'd love it if you would enable your videos tonight, and we love seeing your faces. Part of what Sanctuary in the Woods does is bring people together across different communities. So if you do that, and then you ensure that you're in gallery view, then you get to see everyone rather than just one person who's speaking. So if right now you're only seeing my head, that means that you're in speaker view. If you go to the top right of your screen, you should be able to see, it might say speaker view. If you click on that, you'll move to gallery view and have a chance to see all the folks who are with us tonight. We also really appreciate if you open your chat box and you type in your first and last name, your email address, maybe where you're calling in from and how you got connected to Sanctuary Online. That if you give us your email, you're also giving us permission. We will send you a wonderful email each week that kind of shares what you saw or what you maybe missed if you missed Sanctuary Online and what's coming in the next weeks. So it's a great way to keep up to date. There's also, though, because this is kind of how we roll, a text feature. So if you'd like to get a reminder text on Tuesday afternoons, because so many of us are so busy, right? If you put your phone number, you can either put it in the chat box or you can private message it out to Barb Crabtree, and that way no one will see your phone number. We want to respect that privacy. We'll add you to our Sanctuary database, and I think right now, Barb, we are sending out about 50 texts every Tuesday, aren't we? Reminder texts to people. So that list has grown and grown. Yeah, Barb?
Yeah, that's right. Yep.
Isn't that fun? So that's part of us for tonight. So go ahead and do that, your chat box. Also, along the way, if you want to make any comments or if you have any questions, you can place those in the chat box, and Barb or Cheryl will grab those and they'll stop me, and make sure you get your questions asked and answered. That might be especially helpful during the teaching phase. So Sanctuary, we began building a retreat center just outside of Austin, Texas, on a beautiful bird sanctuary, gorgeous grounds. And we're still doing that. We're still in the process of that. But along the way, I'm getting a little bit of feedback, friends. So Barb, you can mute some folks. Thank you. Along the way, we expanded our brand. We built out our community. In 2018 and 2019, we took to the oceans. We were Sanctuary at Sea and had a whole gang of crazy folks. My goodness, it was wonderful. And we took 2 cruises, one to the Eastern and Western Caribbean, had a blast and really got to know each other and had a wonderful time together. Because we were planning a 2021 cruise to Alaska as our Sanctuary at Sea kind of massive cruise, we thought we could take a year to save some money. And so we developed Sanctuary on the Road. Camping is cheaper than cruising to Alaska. So we built a whole big concept to Sanctuary on the Road. We rented out an entire campsite just south of Hot Springs, Arkansas for this summer when we didn't go camping. So when March hit, we bounced out and we went online. I'm sorry, in May 5th was our first Sanctuary Online. We've been here every Tuesday night. And because we couldn't go camping, literally, in Arkansas, we combined Sanctuary Online and Sanctuary on the Road. And yes, we went camping online for 3 days in August. I had a great time if you were with us. So that's kind of a little bit of who we are and who we continue to be. And also want to tell you, one of our favorite Sanctuary Online evenings is our book club. It happens the last Sunday of the month, every Tuesday. And because December is Advent and Kwanzaa, we're pushing off our next book club until January 26th. we picked a really big book because you have a long time to read it. So Sarah Waters wrote a book called The Paying Guest. Kristen, that was your choice, right? You're put that up there and was voted on last week. So please get that book, begin reading, and join us on January 26th. Whew, now, oh my God, there's so many announcements tonight. It is Giving Tuesday. So if we haven't reached out and touched you yet, and you have found some value in any of the ways Sanctuary touches you, we're still happy for your support. We are excited to say we are just about $1,000 away from our stretch goal this year. So thanks, Aaron. We've been working all day at this. Kristen, so many of you have already donated. Well, more on that later, but oh my goodness. We're having a great time, and we're really going to break some records this year. So we're excited about that. Finally, each Tuesday in December, hope, peace, joy, and love. We have the same framework for each night, but different families, different teachings, different music at the end of our evening. So we're incredibly excited to invite you to tonight's Sanctuary in the Woods, very first time Advent series. Tonight is all about hope, and Kim Rasmus and her 3 beautiful daughters. That's how you wanted me to say this, Kim. I know one of your daughters was pulled away to work tonight, so it's only 2 of your beautiful daughters, and you had to step in. But each night, a family will lead our candle lighting liturgy, 5 or 10 minutes. We are going to invite you, if you have your own Advent wreath at home, or if you just have a candle at home that you'd like to light with us. We're going to invite you at the end of the liturgy to do that. Ken is going to sing a song for us tonight. This normally is going to be how we end the night, but during our rehearsal time, we really thought it fit better to have Ken's song right after our liturgy and before our teaching. Each week, we're going to have a 10, 15-minute teaching on what the world's great living religions believe about this week's theme. So tonight that will be on hope. Then the bulk of our evening will be a community conversation. Tonight is about seasonal traditions and any photos you might want to share about those traditions. And then we're going to close our evening honoring the fact that today, beyond being Giving Tuesday, beyond being the first Tuesday of Advent, is also World AIDS Day. So it's a lot to tee up, and we are able. So maybe you should put your seatbelt on, buckle in, and be ready to enjoy our evening tonight. This is your one chance again for me to remind you, if you have a candle or an Advent wreath, we'll be using that in just a few minutes. And if we seem a little scattered tonight, many of you who know us at Sanctuary in the Woods, only on high holy holidays do we have the birth of yet more baby goats. Swear to God, it happened again. Last time we had 3 goats was Easter Sunday, right, Ken? A few years ago. We had 60 people coming for Easter. We'd all gone to church. We rushed back. We're going crazy, pulling our hair out, and we're going to birth baby goats. But it was the coolest thing to see those people play with goats that are literally a few hours old. Ken, these ones are going on 4 hours old now?
Yes, they were born at between 4 and 4:15 this afternoon. Because
we had nothing else to do on Giving Tuesday and preparing for all of you tonight. Why not have a few goats in the middle of it? Right. So anyway, 2 healthy little boys right now, and leap year, we've got a 3rd little baby out there too. So we'll do a naming contest for Advent baby goats. All right, my friends, Kim and Morgan and Mackenzie, thank you so much for being our first family. I'm going to put a little bit of a spotlight on you here so people don't be worried. That's what's supposed to happen. And now you can see Kim and her gorgeous daughters, and you all can go ahead, and Ken's going to speak the first line, and the rest of you, you can do this with yourselves muted at home. Otherwise it sounds not quite as good as I'm sure it's going to sound with the girls. Ken, Kim, Morgan, and Mackenzie, it's all yours, my friends, and thank you again.
Thank you, Jovi, and thank you, Kim. And Mackenzie and Morgan for being with us tonight. And we're missing Madison. Be sure to tell her that we really missed her this evening as well. So if you will join with me, we're going to do the reading and then light our very first Advent candle for this season. God of light, we gather as the people of hope.
So go ahead.
The world waits in breathless anticipation for the miracle that astounds us anew each year.
Our hope springs from an ancient promise.
Renew that hope in us that we may wait for the coming of the light with confidence, and that you always keep your promises.
And that you are always present with your people.
Hear this promise from the prophet Isaiah. In the days to come, all the nations shall go to the mountain of God. They shall say, let God teach us to walk in the paths of righteousness. Then they shall beat their swords into plowshares and spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war anymore.
Give us courage to live in hope and act in fact that everything we care about is safely held in your hand.
For we have heard that a special child will be born, and that God will come and be among us. We are a people of hope.
So we light the first candle of Advent. We light the candle of hope.
Could I help you?
No, let me do it, please.
I can't see
And
it.
we remember tonight that as a virtual Sanctuary Online community, connected by the light of these first Advent candles, we light this together. And we know that we are connected, and that this light connecting each of us is enough. Kim and Kenzie and Morgan, thank you so much. We will say we are so blessed that you three also have one of our most precious gifts, right, from Sanctuary Online, that you indeed have one of our golden doodles, right, one of our pups. And we're so proud that he lived with you now, a safe space to grow him up. So my friends, normally we would go right into the teaching at this point. But when we, again, like I said, when we were rehearsing, we really thought that Ken's song fit better right after this Advent reading. So Ken, I'd like to go ahead and let you tee this song up and share how important this is to you tonight.
Okay, thank you, Joe. This is a song that I sang to my son when he was a child. And that was over 50 years ago, by the way. And I have sung it now for all three of our grandchildren. And so with apologies for my post-COVID voice, this is my favorite Christmas song. It's entitled, Some Children See Him. Some children see him, lily white, the baby Jesus born this night. Some children see him, lily white, with tresses soft and fair. Some children see him, bronzed and brown, the Lord of heaven to earth come down. Some children see him, bronzed and brown, with dark and wavy hair. Some children see him, almond-eyed,
This Savior whom we kneel beside. Some children see him almond-eyed, with skin of yellow hue. Some children see him dark as day, sweet Mary's child, to whom we pray. Some children see him dark as day, and oh, they love him too. The children in each different place will see the baby Jesus' face like theirs, but filled with heavenly grace and bright with holy light. So lay aside each earthly thing, and with your heart as offering, come worship now, and praises sing. 'Tis hope that's born tonight.
You're getting applause, Ken, with your post-COVID voice. Thank you so much. That's just beautiful. Oh. Beck and your grandchildren are very lucky to have you and Tom as their papas. So tonight, Ken, why don't you open us with the world's great living religions and all they believe about hope.
Okay, thank you, Joe. About 600 years after Jesus was born, his followers began to realize that celebrating his birth on just one day was not really sufficient for how important this date was for Christian people. And so they created this 4-week season of Advent leading up to Christmas as a time of preparation and a time of anticipation for this great holiday. And then through the centuries, a number of different traditions became attached to Advent, like, for example, the Advent wreath candles that we are lighting each Tuesday this month. And also each of the weeks having its own special and separate theme. Those themes have changed different times during the Christian era. They're even different today for different parts of the Christian tradition. We are observing one of the oldest of these traditions in celebrating the 4 themes of hope, peace, joy, and love. So this time each week, I'm going to take a few minutes and explore what the different great living religions of the world believe about each of these themes. So we begin tonight with hope. And tonight we're going to look at 5 religions. We're going to look first at the 3 great Western religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, which we sometimes call the religions of the biblical God. And then we're going to look at 2 of the great Eastern religions, Hinduism and Buddhism. We'll look at them separately, we'll look at them together, we'll see the places where they agree, and we're going to find some stark differences in what these religions believe and teach about hope. To begin our understanding of Judaism, we can go just to one very brief verse from the book of the prophet Jeremiah, who said about the Hebrew people, "We are prisoners of hope." We are prisoners of hope. Now, just about every religion can claim some kind of persecution during its history, but the oppression and the persecution of Jews, even long before the Holocaust, is a uniquely dark and shameful chapter in human history. And it helps us understand what Judaism believes about hope. For the ancient Hebrews, those experiences of being slaves in Egypt and then being cast out, being persecuted, being nomads, having no homeland, gave birth to hope as a belief in a better future. Something better was going to come, and they began to put that into their singing and into their beliefs. First, they talked about a promised land, a land where they would be safe and secure, a land, as they said, that would flow with milk and honey. And as the prophet Isaiah said, nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war anymore. Then hope became something more specific for these Hebrew people. They began to talk about a prophecy of one person whom God would send and who would fulfill all of their promises and prophecies. Now, in modern time, even after the Holocaust, all of those ancient prophecies and promises are still a part of everything that Judaism believes. But now in the modern era, we have heard even a new meaning attached to hope for Jews, and it is, frankly, the hope to survive. We hope to survive. Rabbi Sharon Bruce says, hope is not naive. It's not an opiate to dull the pain of an oppressive reality. Hope may be the greatest act of defiance against a culture of despair. So in order to understand what Judaism believes about hope, we only have to watch a whole race of people insist defiantly on their own survival through centuries of persecution until, beginning in 1948, nearly a 3,000-year-old promise began to come true with the reality of their own nation of Israel. Now, Christianity has actually grew out of Judaism. Christianity has its roots in Judaism. Jesus was a faithful and observant Jew. So Christianity inherited all of those promises and prophecies. So hope became part of the inheritance that Judaism gave to Christianity. But Christianity went even farther to say that that central prophecy of a redeemer, of an anointed ruler coming out of the house of David, had been fulfilled in the birth of a child. That Jesus of Nazareth, that in Jesus of Nazareth, God had personally come to romance and to save this broken world. Christianity proclaimed that we still hope for everything that has been promised to us in the future. In fact, the Greek word, which is translated hope in English, is a very complex Greek word. The word is apokarodokia, and it literally means to stand on the beach and stare at the horizon until the sun comes up. Now, you can stay in bed and believe the sun comes up, and that's faith, but hope gets up in the dark, gets dressed, walks to the beach, stands on the shore, and stares at the horizon until the sun actually comes up. But Christianity doesn't just hope for the things that are going to happen in the future. We don't just wait for hope. We already have hope. Our belief is that Christ is our hope. In Christian scripture, in the book of Hebrews, we read, this hope we have is an anchor of the soul, a hope that is sure and steadfast. And in Romans, this hope does not disappoint us because God's love is poured out into our souls. So the Christian should never give up hope because hope is God's gift to us in Christ. Now, at about the exact same time that Christians were beginning to develop this season of Advent to prepare for the birth of Christ, a man started preaching in the town of Mecca on the Arabian Peninsula. His name was Muhammad, and he is the founder of the religion of Islam. Muhammad accepted the Hebrew scriptures and the Christian scriptures, except he taught that Jesus was just another prophet in that long line of prophets who had preceded him in Judaism. Muhammad taught that he, Muhammad, was the last prophet, the final prophet, the prophet who was the full revelation of God. This is the the Quran, the holy book of Islam. And in the Quran, it acknowledges that life can be so painful that it can produce hopelessness in the human spirit. The Quran talks more bluntly than the Jewish scriptures or the Christian scriptures, for example, about suicide, saying that even if life takes everything else away from you, it cannot take hope away, because the Quran says hope, in fact, is the love and mercy of Allah, which can sustain you through no matter what happens in your life. So we have these three Western traditions. They all have their different historical context. They all talk about hope with different emphases and different ways. But in all of these Western religious traditions, hope is always a virtue. Hope is what is and what is to come. It is what nurtures the human spirit and keeps us going through whatever diversity or despair may come in our lives. As Emily Dickinson says, hope is the thing with feathers that perches in the heart and sings the tune without the words and never stops at all. Now, we're going to make a really significant shift from these three Western religions to the two great Eastern religions, which are Hinduism and Buddhism. First, let me say that Hinduism is the oldest of all the living religions. It began about 5,000 years ago along the banks of the Ganges. And Buddhism grew out of Hinduism very much like Christianity grew out of Judaism. But here's the big difference that is sometimes very hard for those of us in the Western world to grasp. I have lived and worked in Asia for many years, and it is still very difficult for me to understand this basic difference, that the Eastern religions understand the very experience of being a human being totally differently than what we understand it to be. First, they both teach reincarnation or transmigration. There are a few differences between them, but this is the idea that the sole purpose of human life is to reach a state of awareness, a state of enlightenment, a state of wokeness that will keep you from having to come back again and again and again until you get it right. Second, are you ready for this? Even though we call Buddhism a religion, Buddhism isn't a religion, because there is no doctrine or teaching at all about God in Buddhism. Buddhism never declares the existence of any kind of deity at all. Instead, Buddhism is a philosophy or a path or a way to accomplish that enlightenment that will keep you from having to come back again and again. So sometimes Buddhism is called the atheistic religion. Hinduism, on the other hand, is all about God. In Hinduism, we come from God. Our purpose on earth is to seek to live consciously and constantly in the presence of God so that we can return to God and not have to go through that wheel of rebirth and reincarnation. So if we can get our minds around those big differences between the East and the West, then let's talk about hope in Hinduism and Buddhism. And we will find it to be very different from what we heard from the Western traditions. Both Hinduism and Buddhism teach that distractions, attachments, cravings, aspirations, desires keep us bound to this world and keep us in that wheel of reincarnation. And the Anguttara Nikaya, which is one of the sacred writings of Buddhism, the Buddha says there are three kinds of people in this world. There are the hopeful, and there are the hopeless, and then there are those who have no more need of hope. Their teaching about hope begins with a kind of a caution or a warning. that what they call ordinary hope causes us always to desire an imaginary future where everything is always going to be better, and that will inevitably keep us bound to this earth and to reincarnation. They teach that this kind of hope is an illusion because it will always lead to disappointment, because the future is never what we actually hope that it would be. Instead of this ordinary hope, they advocate what Buddhism and Hinduism call practical and realistic hope. This kind of hope begins with accepting what is exactly as it is without needing for it to change or become something different. So ordinary hope leads us to be desiring change, always longing for something different, which leads to agitation and disillusionment and longing. And those are the very things these religions teach keep us bound to this earth and require us to keep coming back again and again until we get it right. While realistic and practical hope allow us to accept things as they are and to live lives of stillness and what the Buddha called wishlessness and lack of expectation. So the ideal state is not to be a person of hope, certainly not a hopeless person, but what the Buddha called a person who no longer has any need for hope. Then from that place of stillness and detachment, Hinduism teaches that we can avoid all the distractions that divert our minds from God, and we can live in a constant conscious awareness of God that will allow us to escape the wheel of rebirth. And from that place of stillness and detachment, Buddhism teaches that we can escape the wheel of rebirth and the suffering that it says is the very essence of the human experience. So I want to close by saying that no matter how much time I spend with Hindus and with Buddhists, and no matter how much I respect their beliefs, and I do, at times to me they feel austere. At times they even feel depressing because of my Western understanding of what human life is meant to be. They have taught me, though, that for them, it is only in this place of detachment from this material world that they find the peace and the stillness to be able to live lives of compassion and joy and service without even caring about the results of their actions that would keep them bound to this world. So finally, as we celebrate hope as the first theme of Advent, I can hear those of us who are Jews and Christians and Muslims saying to Hindus and Buddhists, we respect and admire your belief in realistic hope, giving you the ability to accept things as they are, to believe that every minute is complete and perfect within itself without needing to change, and to live in the present moment with inner peace and contentment. But we would say to them, please don't let that devolve into a narcissistic escapism. Please don't forget your humanity. And I can hear them say to us, we respect and admire your belief in hope as sustaining you through adversity, and in your belief that you can work for and create a better future in this world. But please don't let that devolve into a materialism and a commercialism that makes you forget that we're not human beings here having a spiritual experience. We're spiritual beings here having a human experience. They would say to us, please don't forget your divinity. And so I think we can say that there is wisdom for us in both this Eastern tradition and this Western tradition, both believing in hope and believing that hope can lift us up and create in us what we are meant to be according to what we understand our Creator to want and need us to be. So let's carry hope with us throughout this week And then I hope you'll join with me next week when we find out what the different religions believe about peace.
Oh my God. Unmute yourselves, people. Ken, thank you.
Wow.
Thank you so much.
That was beautiful.
Yeah. Oh, just any comments on that? It's hard to listen to all that, Ken, absorb it and not just have a little bit of comeback there. Dr. Aaron, I know that you said that Buddhism informs, right, modern day psychology. If you want to speak to that and anything that you heard Ken say tonight.
So well, thank you. That was amazing, Ken. You are so gifted and we're so lucky to listen to you. Yeah, I'm a psychologist, and kind of the old school cognitive behavioral therapy was all about changing your thoughts and finding evidence that they weren't true. And the modern day psychology, the most researched, most effective, is based in radical acceptance, which is just observing your thoughts non-judgmentally. And I always say, oh, how human of me. Oh, how human of me that I would have this thought, that insert negative thought, right? So it has created so much peace for so many of my clients. I would be a terrible Buddhist though, because I am wired to always be thinking of the next level. But what I'm learning, there is a state of being blissfully dissatisfied, and that there's not a dialect that exists. You can have two at the same time. So you can be radically grateful of all you have and interested in growing to the next level. That's where I've come to. But yeah, thank you, Ken.
Yeah,
thank you, Joby.
Thanks, Aaron. Anybody else hear something that kind of struck them from Ken's teaching?
Joby, can I add?
Of course you can. We're a captive audience.
Yes,
Ken. Of course you can.
what you just reminded me of, Aaron, is I was asked one time, I was on a panel, and I was asked, what is the most important single thing you have learned in your life? And, in the moment, it was very hard to come up with that. But I thought about that for a long time. And I finally realized, I think the most important thing is to believe that two things can be different without one being better than the other. Yeah. Two things can be different. In the West, we live with this dualistic kind of attitude toward everything. If you got white people and people of color, then white people are better. If you got Jews and Christians, then Christians are better. We have all of this dualism, and which, first of all, it prevents us from learning from each other. When I am in Asia, when I lived with Buddhists for a year in Thailand, and every day was an experience of learning something, some new awareness. So if you don't remember anything else, practice the thought that two things can be different without one being better than the other. Yeah. Oh, thank you, Ken. Thank you. Man, that was just wonderful. And I have to say, Ken, in the comments, besides comments around what you were sharing tonight, we also definitely had someone come in and say that one of the goats must be named Hope. Okay, so as our naming contest. I love this. Kristen came in and said one of those goaties has to be named Hope. And then Edie and Mandy chimed in and said Zoe and Zach, who are going to be doing our liturgy on the 15th, on the third Sunday, third Tuesday night. They're actually their birthdays today, so you could name them Zoe and Zach. Maybe the little third one will be called Hope. You guys can figure that all out. But there's always lively conversation in the chat room, my friends. Thank you so much for that. Oh, well, I want to move us on. I know it's an interesting thing. We might go maybe 5 minutes after, depends on how talkative y'all get, because I know we love to talk and to share. And tonight, what we were planning on doing after talking about hope, so thank you, Ken, for that, was having what we call a community conversation. So each week we have a topic that's hopefully tied into the theme for the week. And this week we were going to ask people
because we thought it would be easy to start with and that you could then warm up to sharing photographs and recipes and things like that next week. If you or your family have any seasonal traditions that you'd like to share, and I'm gonna start with one. Tom, I'm gonna give you full credit for this. Sorry, Ken, but he deserves all the credit for this, right?
Yes.
And each year, for many of you, Jane Ann, when you did your video for us last week for our annual meeting, you said that even though you'd never been to Sanctuary, to the property yet, you felt like you've been there. It was on your bucket list to come, and that you really felt like a part of our community through meeting us through SanctuaryOnline. And so in this picture is the living room of the big house, we call it, at Sanctuary in the woods out just east of Austin, Texas. Many of you know Cheryl and I live in a home that is about, well, it's just not this big. It's a tiny home. We live in 399 square feet on the property while we're building. And Tom and Ken have lived in this home with that stunning fireplace that warms us every winter for about 20 years now. You might notice something about the tree though. Tom, that tree does not look like a Christmas tree at all. What's going on there, Tom? Can you unmute and tell us?
Hey, Joby.
Yes, Ken.
I have to tell this story because it's about Tom.
Okay, all right, you go for it.
Yeah, I told him that I was going to tell the true story of this tree. Okay, many years ago, Tom and I were about to host a meeting of the senior leadership team of MCC churches internationally. And the meeting was going to start 2 days after Thanksgiving. And Tom realized that he would not have time to put the Christmas tree up and decorate it in the 2 days between Thanksgiving and the time the meeting started. So we decided to put the tree up, get all the lights on it and everything about 5 days before Thanksgiving. And then we would really rush between Thanksgiving and the time the meeting started to get the Christmas tree decorated. So the tree went up. And now what you all have to understand is that I live with this little Christmas elf named Tom Cole. And so the tree was up and I passed that tree one day. And this was about 5 days before Thanksgiving. I passed that tree and there was a little pumpkin hanging on it. And the next day I passed it, and with the pumpkin, there was a little turkey hanging on it. And then the next day, there was a wreath of autumn colored leaves swirling all around this tree. And I said, Tom, what is going on here? And he said, this is our Thanksmas tree. He said, from now on, we put the tree up before Thanksgiving. We decorate it with fall and Thanksgiving ornaments and colors. And it stays up until the beginning of Advent. And then that same little Christmas elf magically turns that Thanksmas tree into this Christmas tree. So that's the story of our tradition of the Thanksmas tree.
Is that not silly? Look at that. and
I like the orange.
Yeah, the Thanksmas tree turns into the Christmas tree every year. And I think this picture actually, Ken, was taken, the Christmas picture was taken right before we did our donor gift, right? Our donor reception.
Yes.
Every year for the folks who are close to us, who are regular givers and supporters of Sanctuary, we offer a Christmas party. And I think that's the year also, Cheryl, that Kelly, your sister, put all those gifts together for everybody, right? I'm pretty sure that underneath the tree were the gifts that Kelly helped with as well. So thanks not only to Tom, and yet all our volunteers that help us put that together. That's a house that feels as seasonal as you can imagine when you walk into it. So I'm curious if anybody else would like to share a seasonal tradition that their family enjoys.
Sure, I can. You can't see me, but I can talk.
Sandra,
can you hear me?
Sandra Miller from Canada, Toronto. Sure,
That's
Sandra.
Right. So for 25 plus years, we've been helping deliver boxes to children that are collected for by the Toronto, a big newspaper, the Toronto Star. So I started out by myself because my kids weren't interested or whatever. And then they decided, oh, maybe we'll come along. So then boyfriends came along and grandchildren came along, and now friends of people that work for them have come along, and we did our last delivery of 90 or 100 boxes. I think about 100 boxes last weekend.
Oh my gosh, Sandra.
So it's been a long time, and we still have the picture of Joe and Cheryl and Rachel in a row before we went out to deliver. And the other night, I was really touched by the fact that Romelda said, I remember when I first joined, Ernie had us all so organized, and I almost cried because Ernie has such serious dementia, he wouldn't remember. But somebody still remembers him. And that just, to me, was a good start to Christmas.
Oh, Sandra, thank you so much. Yes, MCC Toronto is actually, I think, the largest depot. We deliver the most. They're called Christmas boxes, and the Toronto Star pays for all these. Our church just, it's like a, I don't know, like a warehouse. And then Romelda organizes by where you live and how many boxes you want to deliver. And then we all get a little map. And you're right, Sandra, Rachel and Cheryl and I would dress up with Santa hats and stuff and do our route. And these boxes are full of clothing, school supplies, an appropriate gender and age-based toy. They're big boxes for these families. Yes, Sandra, there's not much better than when you go to a house and drop those boxes off.
And you see this little 2-year-old going, presents, 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 you know, and they really shouldn't see them yet, but they're right there.
Well, and thank you for
this year they felt fuller than, they felt heavier
I hope
than
so.
ever.
I hope
and I thought I think that's probably due to the pandemic.
Yeah, I bet. And they're probably more necessary than ever. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thanks, Sandra. Anybody else? I know there must be some fabulous seasonal. Jane Ann, are you going to share? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, I love Tom's orange tree.
You love all things orange.
My mom, who passed away in May, bought me my tree as a housewarming gift 30 years ago for my first Christmas in my house in Toronto in High Park. And my favorite color being orange. That year, the department store called Holt Renfrew, which was right next door to my office in downtown Toronto, that year they had orange lights on their tree.
Oh.
And it just so happened that a couple of weeks after Christmas, I was in their restaurant up in the cafe, and outside the ladies' washroom were garbage bags full of those orange lights.
Oh my goodness.
And so all of the trees in the store had been decorated with these orange lights. And so I asked the maitre d' of the restaurant, what are they going to do with them? He goes, oh, they're for the garbage. So I took 6 bags of orange lights, and 30 years later, my tree still has, it's not up yet, but has orange. Like next week, I'll post a picture of it. Actually, it was on Facebook. But there are no needles. There are no needles left on the tree. But when it's ordained, when it's adorned, when it's adorned with all the balls and ornaments collected over 30 years, you can't tell that there's no needles on the tree, but it definitely has orange lights.
That's fabulous. Thanks, Jane Ann.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I have to put it up because it's my first Christmas in my new condo, and it's the 30-year anniversary. So it's sitting in boxes. I just haven't gotten to it yet because I burst into tears every time I start. So sooner or later I'll get to it.
We know Jane Ann lost both her mom and her dad this year. So Jane Ann, I'm sure will surround you in prayers.
Thank you.
All those memories.
Yes.
Thank you.
Another family tradition. Kristen, are you waving your hand there?
Yeah, I have one. So mom's side of the family is Italian, so the center's on food. And my grandmother always had such a feast, Christmas Eve, including rice balls. So, you know, she not the giant ones you get in restaurants sometimes, but a little bit smaller than tennis ball size. And she'd make hundreds of them for Christmas Eve. More than 20 years ago now, my grandmother passed away on December 21st of that year. And the family had to decide what to do for Christmas. and we found a restaurant that could not only cater, but could make rice balls. And in our, probably, week of being together at that point, maybe being a little hungover, definitely being lack of sleep, we spent most of Christmas Eve judging the rice balls' inadequacy. For the next several years, my Aunt Caroline tried to master my grandmother's recipe. And each year my cousins and I gave her feedback, and she finally nailed it. And then a few years after that, I said to my aunt, I'd like to know grandma's recipe for rice balls and have this live on. And she's like, well, I have it in your grandmother's handwriting. And she invited my other aunts and some cousins and I to her house 8 years ago. And she had photocopies for us of my grandmother's recipe in her handwriting and a separate page of her own notes. And she taught us how to make the rice balls. And for the last 8 years, the group of my cousins and my aunts and uncles has been getting larger. And we can now, the weekend before Christmas, we get together on the Saturday or the Sunday. And now we knock out the rice balls in like an hour because there's so many of us. And then we have like a Sunday lunch that day, a few days before Christmas. So unfortunately, we're not going to be able to do that one because of COVID this year.
Are you going to do it?
So I'm bummed. But it's, the Christmas tradition is around grandma's recipes of rice balls. But
nice.
I have made them on my own before, so I will probably make them and bring them to friends' houses who live nearby.
Good.
So,
well, and maybe, it is about doing things new and different this year, right, Kristen? So maybe there's a way you could Zoom or something and make those rice balls still as a community, as a family. So
we might have to. I think my aunt and I are the only ones willing to do all the labor intensive parts. So everybody else kind of helps and then eats lunch. But it's great. And it's a memory from my my grandmother passing over 20 years ago, and it's still a memory. So
thank you.
About being together.
Very nice.
Anybody else out there with a family tradition? Tony, bring it. Tony and then Eric. Yes.
All right. Hello.
Hey, Tony.
My sister started this tradition several years ago. They get together for 2 days and bake Christmas cookies. And 2 years ago, I was invited to come along because I did not live in the same town or area. And so we got together and baked Christmas cookies. And this is what, I don't know if you can see it. This is what we look like.
Oh, it looks great, Tony.
Before we started baking the cookies.
Nice.
Champagne, I love it.
That's what you looked like before you started baking.
That's what we look like before, exactly.
I think I can tee this up, Tony. Okay, come on. And after
this is what we look like when we were done baking the cookies. So. And so now that I live up here with them, I'm going to host a cookie baking 2 days this year, and they're both coming over to my house. And we're going to bake cookies.
Oh, Tony, so good, so good. We miss you so much. We lost Tony. Aaron, you have to meet Tony because Aaron said earlier she wants to cruise with us. We're still planning on Alaska, and Tony is our cruise diva. There's no one that has spent more days on the ocean than this man, and he makes it fabulous. He and Ellen down there as Harmony, part of our team, our cruise team that makes it so amazing for us. So Tony, we'll see you soon again, Christmas cookie or no, but in Alaska, baby. I know we can still do this when we get all safe. Eric, why don't you close us out for the night, my friend? I just want to be honoring people's time, and we'll end a little bit, a couple minutes late, but these stories are just too
That's kind of quick. Ken and Tom know Jerry, and Jerry used to do Christmas big at our house. And one year in taking down over 25,000 lights of the house, we hadn't taken down the tree yet. And Northridge earthquake hit.
Oh.
And one ornament fell. And Jerry said, I'm not messing with a good thing. He got 2 king-size sheets, stitched them together, pushed the tree in the corner, and it lives in the corner of the living room all year long. He gets unwrapped and brought back out. And I still do that. So.
And someone must ask you each year, Eric, how do you guys get that exactly the same every year? It's like each ornament perfectly stays where it was the year before.
Hey, Joe.
Sure, Ken.
Yeah. Eric is actually being modest when he talked about 25,000 lights. That house was the most remarkable thing at Christmas. And not only was Jerry just this magnificent creative person who made everything in the world beautiful, he also decorated and made all of the paraments and vestments and everything for our church. But honestly, their house had so many lights on it that people would park and just wait, expecting it to lift off at any minute.
And the TV station.
We're not too far from
Yes,
the
and TV stations would come.
We're not too far from the Burbank airport. Jerry said, I always have to call Burbank and warn them that we're turning on the lights so the planes don't come.
Eric, I can see Erin's excited for you because her husband Garth is a total nerd. I love this man, a total geek. He's an engineer, and he's actually lit their house up with somehow this thing lights different colors for different seasons. It's an app on his phone. He's so, you know what, Erin, once again, you meet up with Eric, connect him with Garth. You know, you all do your thing, right? To each their own at Christmas, my friends, you know. And I just one thing, my mom, she's on here tonight. Hi, Mom. Hi, Mom. There you go. Thanks for watching, Mom. In our family, we used to always argue about Christmas gifts as our family grew and grew and grew and grew, and spending $20 and getting somebody something stupid they didn't want. And finally, I don't even know how many years ago, Mom, this started, but we gave this to my oldest brother. There's 5 kids, and said every other person in the family, adult, will donate a certain amount of money, at least $20. And then Mike, my oldest brother, would have to go and find a needy family. And we would do this around Thanksgiving in time for the person whose year it was to find that family and gift them. And I know we've gone around through the siblings at least once. We've gone to their kids, which were 3 of them once, back up to the siblings again, back down around all the sibling kids, and now they're having kids. And it's an incredible, you know, twice Cheryl and I were able to pick a family. And we were in Canada both those years, remember, Cheryl? And so think of the US dollar being 1.3 times the Canadian dollar. It was just a really neat thing for each of us to do a small bit and yet to make a real difference in someone's Christmas. So something that we've done as a family for many, many years.
Nice.
All right, this has been wonderful. I hope you have enjoyed your time with us tonight. And I just want to tee up what you can look forward to next week, because I think right here, Stedney, if you're still on the call, Stedney and her daughter Hannah are going to do our liturgy next week. And the challenge with this one, Stedney, you're living in Louisville and Hannah is in California, right?
That is correct.
Our heart breaks.
Thank goodness for Zoom.
Yeah, thank goodness. And gosh, Hannah, where did you get that picture? Because she used to be so tiny.
And she's old enough now.
How old is she, Stedney?
14.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Well, we're really looking forward to that. And thank you for doing that for us. Next week, we'll have another teaching from Ken around peace. And if you weren't sure if the teaching would be worth your while, now you know to bring a notebook. And there's the conversation, the community conversation is going to be favorite seasonal foods. So if you have recipes and you'd like to send them in to me at talk to us at SanctuaryInTheWoods.com, that would be fabulous. Once again, talk to us at SanctuaryInTheWoods.com. I'll be taking recipes, and then we can send them out. We can put them in the chat box. We can do all those wonderful things. Again, if you've given us your email in the chat room, Barb, maybe we can compile a Word document and send those out with our email next week. How's that for a promise? And then Darcel, are you here? I thought I saw Darcel earlier. Darcel.
I am here.
There you are, hon. Darcel, you're bringing us Let There Be Peace on Earth. You're singing next week?
Yes, I am.
Have you been practicing?
Yes, I have.
Are you nervous?
I I'd be lying if I said I wasn't.
Well, if you want to send me any slides, you can do that if they match up with your song, or we can just look at you and enjoy you. But we really appreciate you also giving of yourself that way. We've got a very talented community, my friends. And man, next week, again, the week after that is Edie. This is Edie and Zach and Zoe. Happy birthday, Edie and Zach and Zoe. Hugging baby goats again on an Easter Sunday, because that's when people get born at Sanctuary in the Woods. If Morgan's still on, Kim, there's Gov. Picture of Gov with Edie and Zach and Zoe and the goaty goats. For those of you who don't know us very well, we have a lot of goats. Now apparently we have 3 more. So, and then Jane Ann, look at Jane Ann closing us off the end of the month. Jane Ann, the end of our Advent series, you'll be bringing the candle lighting liturgy to bring in that Canadian international perspective. So we appreciate that as well. Hopefully you'll have the tree up by then. Maybe we can force.
I'll sit by the tree.
There you go. And then of course, after Advent this year, there's 5 Tuesdays in December. And instead of book club, we will be celebrating Kwanzaa, because if again, there's ever a year where we need to continue to learn and grow, it is this year. So we're going to invite a number of African-American leaders from our community to teach us and help us bring our understanding around Black Lives Matter and Black Culture Matters, learning about Kwanzaa. Now, thank you, Kim and the girls. Can I get some applause for Kim and the girls for leading us off there? Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Kim. Thank you. Oh, and for spending your first Tuesday evening of Advent with us. And Ken, only at Sanctuary would anyone attempt to weave the threads of Advent and Giving Tuesday and World AIDS Day together. But that is how we roll. All yours, my friend.
Yeah, thank you. So this evening we are weaving the theme of hope through 3 different traditions. One of them is ancient, and 2 of them have actually originated within most of our lifetimes. First of all, we have welcomed the ancient tradition of Advent with its promises and its prophecies that God is about to do something really amazing and wonderful, and we want to be ready because we don't want to miss it. And then we have also lifted up the hope of all of those amazing organizations out there that are selflessly serving so many people in need. We are aware of how the stresses and demands on them are increased during this time of COVID. And so we're lifting up their hope for generosity on all of our parts on this Giving Tuesday. And finally, we are joining the rest of the world in commemorating World AIDS Day to increase awareness about HIV and to commemorate all of those who have been affected by this disease. The first World AIDS Day was held on December the 1st, 1988. And this year, in 2020, we are celebrating World AIDS Day as the longest observed awareness initiative of its kind in the history of public health. And so tonight we have nurtured our hopes with the warmth and the light of the Advent wreath. And we are closing tonight by nurturing our hopes also with the warmth and the light of the World AIDS Day candle. Thank you all for being with us. We look forward to seeing you next week.
God bless everybody. Thank you, Ken.
Bless you.
You can unmute
Thank
and
you.
back your way off.
Love you.
Love and hugs.
Thank you.
Love you, love you.
Everybody, thank you.
Night, night. Thanks for coming, Kathleen.
Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely.
Bye.
Good
See
to
you next
again,
week.
Stephanie.
Thank you, Papa.
Mary
See you
Beth.
next week.
Thank you all.
And we're $300 below our mark. We got some wonderful contributions tonight during the show.
Excellent.
And isn't that great? We're just $304 away from our stretch goal.
Oh, look at that
One
tree,
brown
Bonnie and
dog.
Carol's tree.
Right.
That looks beautiful too.
She's
Oh,
so sweet.
Bonnie and Carol, go.
What a beautiful tree, Camp Bonnie and Carol. That's a gorgeous tree too.
Oh, we're almost finished with it, almost.
Could you come and do mine?
Gee, that's only one of 3 that size that we put up still.
Oh my
Wow.
goodness.
Why? Wow.